President Donald Trump just spoke at the UN General Assembly where he told European countries that they are going to hell, insisted that he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and gave the UN shit for not giving him an adequate teleprompter and escalator. He was allotted a time of 15 minutes to speak. He spoke for an hour.
Hey, it's Joe from Georgia. So the president went to the United Nations today. He gave a speech. He was allotted 15 minutes of speak time, just like every other leader of countries around the world are when they come there. Well, the president took 1 hour of people's time. And he had to do so without a teleprompter because it wasn't working, so it was the usual speech from him. He also told all these countries that they were going to hell. He also said that Christianity was the most persecuted religion in the entire world. He also went on to say that he deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. And he also said that stopping the war in Ukraine has been much tougher than he anticipated. I think people told him that beforehand. But he continues to go on to embarrass the United States and speak for an entire hour. Folks, if you want to see where we're at as a country, all you had to do is watch that speech today. The leaders around the world were silent. There was no applause for the president today. There's no one sharing his views on what the world is doing right now. He's actually alienating the United States, just like North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran. And what do they have in common? They're all ran by dictators. Is that what we're looking forward to?
Donald Trump just gave his speech at the UN General Assembly shortly ago in New York City, where he gave a campaign-style speech that lasted about an hour when it was only supposed to be 15 minutes long. And he aired grievances with certain UN countries. He talked about green energy and railed against climate change, and then went on to say he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize and said that the UN countries are all going to hell. Yeah. So tells them they're all going to hell and then says he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. He also complained about things in the UN building, and it's truly remarkable. I just wonder what these countries are saying now behind closed doors about what he had to say. I'm curious what they really think about the United States of America and how offended they probably were by many of his comments. I mean, if you're from one of these UN countries, what do you guys think about America? Do you think your country is going to hell, or do you think there's another country that's going to hell? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, spread the word, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything.
So Trump spoke to the UN today for far too long, and he claimed to be right about everything, but we should probably check.
I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
Like all of them?
And most of them are built in China, and I give China a lot of credit. They build them, but they very few wind farms. So why is it that they build them and they send them all over the world, but they barely use them?
Yeah, that's just wrong. Not only does China use the wind farms, they actually account for 70% of global wind farm installations. So, yeah.
The previous administration also lost nearly 300,000 children. Think of that. They lost more than 300,000 children, little children, who were trafficked into the United States.
Yeah, this absolutely didn't happen. What happened is ICE just lost the paperwork and forgot to send notices to unaccompanied minors in the U.S. that they needed to show up for a court date, and then when they didn't show up for their court date, they were marked down as missing. But missing a court date doesn't mean you're being trafficked or that they don't know where you are. They have the paperwork, which they found because they actually just asked other agencies that also tracked unaccompanied minor immigrants. And this has been proven false so many times, I can't believe that they're still claiming that they found 300,000 missing children. That's not what happened.
Radicalized environmentalists. And they want the factories to stop. Everything should stop. No more cows. We don't want cows anymore. I guess they want to kill all the cows.
Yeah, I didn't look this one up, but I'm pretty sure the environmentalists don't want to kill all the cows. Watch this next part where he explains how closing the borders is actually a humanitarian act.
It was a humanitarian act for all involved, because on the trips up, thousands of people a week were dying. Women were being raped. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Raped, horribly beaten, raped. On the trip up, the journey up, it was a long walk.
So closing the borders is saving thousands of lives because of all the people that die on the way just trying to get to the border? But why would they risk such a dangerous journey if it's so safe where they come from? It's almost like staying would be even more dangerous.
And we saved so many lives of people that wouldn't make the journey. That journey was loaded up with death. Loaded up with death. Dead bodies all along the roads of jungles to get up. They go through jungles, they go through areas so hot you couldn't breathe. They were dying of suffocation, areas so hot that you couldn't breathe. Dead bodies all over. We virtually stopped drugs coming into our country by sea. We call them the water drugs. They kill hundreds of thousands of people.
Water drugs? Is that like diuretics? I didn't know they were so dangerous.
Them ruining that beautiful Scottish and English countryside with windmills and massive solar panels that go 7 miles by 7 miles, taking away farmland.
I really don't think Trump understands numbers, because a 7 mile by 7 mile solar panel would be 12,698 hectares. And the Longfield solar farm that they're building in the UK, it's not even done yet, but when it's done, it will be the biggest solar farm in the UK. It's going to be 459 hectares. So 459, is that bigger or smaller than 12,698?
Lower, whatever the hell happens, this climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail.
That just may be the most xenophobic statement I have ever heard.
Countries are going to hell.
Going to hell? Europe is generating half of its electricity through renewable resources. Their inflation is lower than that in America, and they have much less division. Donald, maybe your definition of hell is different than the rest of us.
So, did you all happen to catch any of Donald Trump's United Nations speech today? Nothing bizarre that you want to share with the class about it? At one point, he's talking about how carbon footprint's not a real thing. Global climate change is the greatest hoax ever perpetuated on humanity. It's ravaging the economies. I'm sure Norway would have something to say about that. He says, "Trust me, I'm right about everything. You know, during the campaign, we sold this hat. It said Trump is right about everything. I don't say that to be braggadocious, but it's true." This fucking guy. And listen, the crowd is dead ass silent. And do you know why? Do you remember this clip of Saddam Hussein that was going around on social media like a year ago, where he's like calling people's names out and they stand up and they're like, "Oh, I love blah, blah, blah," and then they get taken out back, and that's what this crowd, people were fucking scared of this guy. People were scared of this guy. You know, I guess I just don't know what to say anymore.
We have some news right now. Donald Trump just gave a speech to the United Nations General Assembly in which he was only allowed 15 minutes. He went about an hour, and he told countries across the globe that they are, quote, going to hell. Here's what you missed from the speech. Throughout the speech, Donald Trump made it a priority to rail against climate change, saying that climate change does not exist, and essentially attacking countries for adopting green energy policies. He said that it was harder than expected to try to end the war in Ukraine because he hasn't been able to do so yet. He said that he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and essentially that everyone believes he should get the Nobel Peace Prize. He talked about how he deployed the National Guard to Washington, D.C. to help clean up trash in the city. He attacked multiple European countries throughout the continent over immigration and over climate policy. He attacked the United Nations for giving him a teleprompter that didn't work, and also for having him walk up an escalator that didn't work. Really a campaign-style speech for about an hour when he only had 15 minutes. As always, spread the word. Follow along, stay up to date on all the news you need to know about. I'll have much more to come very soon, so stay tuned.
Your countries are going to hell. That is how Donald Trump started his speech at the United Nations General Assembly in New York not too long ago. and I want to go through what he said today and break it down. Trump went a bit off script for this speech. First, he complained about a broken teleprompter, then later complained about a broken escalator in the UN building. He then used both of those as an example to say that the organization is falling apart. From there, he really lit into the UN, accusing it of, quote, funding an assault on Western nations through migration. He also said it was time to end what he called the, quote, failed experiment on open borders. He then went into a boasting mode where he listed his administration's achievements, whether it be the first one or the second one. This involves a stronger economy, tougher border enforcement, crime reduction in American cities, and even counter-cartel missions in Latin America. When it came to climate change, he just straight out outright dismissed it, calling climate change a, quote, green energy scam. Later labeled climate change as the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world. He then dove into trade, in which he defended all of his tariffs, saying that the U.S. had to protect its sovereignty, insisting that other nations had broken the rules while America played fair. He also made news by announcing the new international effort led by the U.S. to enforce the Biological Weapons Convention with an AI verification system. Here's the kicker of the entire situation. Less than an hour from Trump saying to the UN General Assembly that you're all going to hell, he then kind of completely changed his tone. He then sat down with the Secretary General and thanked the UN for treating him with respect, saying that the organization's potential for peace is incredible, and even pledged that the U.S. stands 100% behind it. So yes, less than an hour went from your countries are going to hell to the UN has incredible potential for peace. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. I'll be sure to keep you updated, so please do share my videos and follow me for more.
After Donald Trump delivered what I thought was the worst press conference of his entire term so far yesterday, I didn't really think the bar could get any lower until I woke up and saw Trump was speaking in front of the UN. And I knew that he was going to take the opportunity to do what he always does, and that is embarrass our entire country in front of the world. And he lived up to that. Donald Trump not only couldn't read most of the time, was melting down, but after he was laughed at, decided to attack world leaders. It was a disaster speech. Before we get into the moments in which Trump was laughed at and then started yelling at and attacking world leaders, I want to start with where he began whining about how he didn't get to build the UN building.
Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time, and which actually produced a far inferior product. And I realized that they did not know what they were doing when it came to construction, and that their building concepts were so wrong.
Are we being serious right now? I gotta stop asking that question, because of course we are. He is not serious, but he is serious about this complaint. Donald Trump can only ever think about himself. He is speaking before all of the leaders of the world. And he's focused on a building he didn't get to build years ago. This is our president somehow. He is in complete cognitive decline. It has only somehow made his narcissism worse, which I can't even begin to understand. But the embarrassment that this is for us, it is painful to watch. That this is how everyone else perceives us around the world. That Donald Trump went in there today with his grievance, with his little crybaby attitude, and decided that he wanted to pretend that he was a tough guy while whining the whole time. But no, he did try to play off the tough guy act with this ridiculous nonsense right here.
I'm feeling a lot safer. Crime, we're getting crime down. And by the way, speaking of crime, Washington, D.C. was the crime capital of America. Now it's after 12 days, it's a totally safe city. Everyone's going out to dinner. They're going out to restaurants. Your wife can walk down the middle of the street with or without you. Nothing's going to happen.
My people have done a fantastic job, and yes, I called in the National Guard, and the National Guard took care of business, and they weren't politically correct, but they took care of business. We got 1,700 career criminals out, brought them back to where they came from, the countries where they came from, or put them in jails. Washington, D.C. is now a totally safe city again, and I welcome you to come. In fact, we'll have dinner together at a local restaurant, and we'll be able to walk. We don't have to go by an armor-plated vehicle. We'll walk right over there from the White House.
So Donald Trump's teleprompter broke today when he was speaking at the UN General Assembly, and he gave one of the most embarrassing speeches in all of U.S. history. Let's start with this one where he's addressing immigration in other countries.
You have to end it now. Sid, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration.
And then he also started talking about climate change and how other countries are to blame and not the United States, of course. But when he was speaking about environmentalists and people who care about the environment in general, he was saying no more cows. We don't want cows anymore. I guess they want to unalive all the cows. And he even decided to shout out his own merch line, saying, I'm really good at predicting things. During the campaign, they had a hat. A best-selling hat, of course. Trump was right about everything it said. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. This is the way he's speaking in front of world leaders as the President of the United States. He reduced America's voice to playground insults, conspiracy theories, and petty side rants where no one even knows what he's talking about. Instead of diplomacy, he bragged about himself. Instead of unity, he mocked our allies. And instead of leadership, his speech was filled with shame and confusion. Every single time Trump gets on the global stage and makes speeches like this, it chips away at America's credibility, leaving us weaker, smaller, and way less respected than we previously were. And that is exactly what our foreign adversaries want.